Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're chatting with Tate Wu from Sunrise Tornado, the board game publisher of Cat Sudoku Summer Festival, which is currently on Kickstarter. Tate, welcome to the binge. How you doing?
Very good. Thank you so much, James. Thank you for the invite.
Oh, it is great that you've agreed to come on the podcast. Anytime I can talk about cats, I'm in. I love cats, although I am allergic, but I'm a former owner of cats from back in the day growing up, and absolutely love them. So anytime I see a cat-themed game, I am in. I've got at least one cat-themed game and another one I'm working on potentially later, so it's cool to kind of see these cat themes, and I know you've got several games you've done cat themes on, so we're going to get into that in today's episode. But first, let me start with, you're Taiwanese, but you live in the States, right?
That's right, yes.
So how did you get, how did that whole thing happen? Like, when did you move to the States, or when did you immigrate?
Well, so I moved here when I was very little, so I pretty much grew up in LA. It's just, came with family.
Yeah, and what was the decision of your parents? Like, did they move there for a specific industry, or what brought them to California?
Mostly because of it just for the education. They prefer to have a just more relaxed, because because me and my brother are not the studious type, so we probably don't think we can, we're fit to compete with in education in Taiwan, so they move us to US, and just to have a better childhood, and more like fun place to grow up.
Yeah, and did you and your brother play like a lot of board games growing up at all? Like, were you a heavy board gamer, or?
Well, he's not. So it's like he's not interested. So I always have to like beg him to to play with me. When I grow up, I have to like find people. My older students just have to grab them, to play with me. It's not easy.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
And then how did you get into like the hobby? Because there's board games where a lot of people think of the classics like Monopoly and Risk and Sorry and those kind of games, and then there's the modern day hobby. So how did you get into the modern day hobby, or what was that transition like for you?
So let me start when I was very little. I love playing games. So anytime I can get a game on to play, I buy them. And all of them are just classic games, like Monopoly, chess, Animal Chess, and so, something very similar.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't able to really get into hobby games until about early 2000, and I went to Origin, and that's where there was a hobby shop nearby in Fullerton, but there are a lot, but a lot of the Avalon Hills games, they're like a little too deep for me. So I couldn't even, I bought one, I couldn't understand what it's about. But when I went to Origin, and that was my first US convention, and I see a lot more, lighter hobby games, and something I can get into. So that's pretty much when I start getting into the industry. Yeah.
I've heard people describe Origins as the gamers con, right? Because you have like a lot of tables, and there's it's just as much space for playing games as there is exhibiting, right? And there's lots of chances to meet new people and make new friends, and just kind of play games on the fly. I always had the privilege of going 2 years ago, and absolutely loved it. And definitely it's on my radar to go back at some point. So that's cool when you start getting exposed to other games, and it kind of sets you along the path. At what point did you start designing games? Like, how did you get into actual design? Because that's a big leap, right? Going from kind of just being a player to actually designing your own games.
Yeah, it's actually I did design when I was very little. It's just for fun, because I'm out of games to play, so I start to make up my own games. So that was like when I was very little. So I did that for a little while, but I I couldn't find people to play with, and especially playtesting. You want people to play more, but usually it's just hard to find
Yeah.
playtester, especially at my age when I was in elementary schools. You just can't find people to play. So I kind of I did that for a little bit, and then I kind of stopped. But then about the same period of time, year about early 2000, I started you know playing games, and I took a class from oh my God, Myers. I'm sorry, I forgot his first name, but he already published all the games, and then I saw he has a class in Otis.
Mm.
It's like an art college institute in LA,
Okay.
and so I took the class and get to know the industry a little bit, because when you play games, buy games, you don't really know the industry actually. You just know the games. But
Yeah.
he talks about how you can pitch, different conventions you can go to. So that gets me a little bit into the industry, and so that's kind of how I started to uh, consider design and self-publish. Yeah,
That's cool. And then what was the
yeah.
first game that you made that was like an officially like an actual game that you were able to get others to play?
Actually, I remember now. His name is Keith Myers.
Keith
Keith
Myers.
Myers. Yeah. Okay. So I did a lot of horrible designs, back then. The real games. Something a few games I get is proud of is I published a few in. So I was in China a little bit for like 5 7 years.
Mm.
I After early 2000, so I published a couple games there, and also I was very lucky to have two games published by Z-Man Games in 2010. Two small games. It's One is it's in the Chinese name. It's like a book. It's like a set collection game called Tian Zi. Another one is Mountain of Inferno. It's
Mm.
also a small car game. So those two are published by Z-Man Games. So those are kind of the good beginning of
And
my games.
was that in
Yeah.
China? Like, so that publishing that Z-Man, did they publish it in China or did they publish around the world?
Oh no, that's US. Z-Man
Oh
Games in
wow.
US, but in China there's a couple different games. One is a 1 to 5 player deck building games. I think it's called like I forgot. It's like Shadow Master or something.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is actually a worker placement. It's actually for the 2010 Shanghai Expo.
Okay.
So yeah, that was the couple games I published back a long time ago.
So there's a lot to unpack just in that one sentence you made. So let me break this down. So one,
Yeah.
in China, how did you find designing for that market versus North America? Was there a distinct difference in player style and the types of games that do well there versus here, or how did you approach that?
um, so um, so I was there for a period of time, and that's when I realized people like different games in different regions. So there isn't just one uh, game that people love in all over China. I mean, yeah, I mean, people love deduction games for like all over the world for a
Sure.
period of time. People just love them. But in From what I discovered is people in southern China they like more uh, family and party games. People in northern China, there it goes heavier when you go upward.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's different. I don't know why, but but for those two games, it's more for the Shanghai Expo. It's something that the publisher they just give me some criteria in the game that they think will work. So I just follow the direction to make a game about the Shanghai Expo. So it's most about is a worker placement again, and then it's about getting in people buying tickets and getting to the expo to visit and so forth. So the game talks about the expo itself.
Mm.
So yeah, so like feel like a little touristy kind of a game. Yeah. And for the deck building is something that I designed, and then and they seem to like it, so they published it. Yeah.
And then how did you get the
So
Z-Man? So the other half is the Z-Man. So how did you go about getting two games with that publisher? They're not a small publisher. So was this
yeah.
just straight up like blind pitching, or how did you get in with them?
So it's another different story. Okay, so so I was so I got to know Ziff, and then I kind of distribute Z-Man games in Taiwan and China for a
Mm,
period of time. So while I was doing that, and then I was also designing games, and actually I self-published those games in Taiwan, and then he just pick it up. Um, I think it's because I know Ziv already, so it's just like it's a little bit easier, kind of lucky, But
yeah.
otherwise, it's pitching is the hardest thing for me because I really don't know how to like to pitch and then to make a sales sheet. So it's like I was just lucky. That's all I can say is
Yeah, it's
uh,
tough to
I got
pitch, right? Like, I mean, I've pitched, and then I have people that have pitched to me, right? So with my company, Tin Robot Games, and the biggest advice I would give to people is visuals matter. Visuals matter, and even if you're using AI art, that's fine as a stand-in. But it's very, very difficult to see kind of what the designer sees when I'm looking at like boxes on a piece of paper with or like with just playing cards and like here's kind of what we're trying to do for the game. I don't know if I'm just not creative enough. I can't visualize it, right? Like I can't see what they see, and often I might reject games that otherwise would be a good fit just because I don't get it, because I can't get beyond the simplistic artwork sometimes, or the simplistic design or sketches that are pitched to me. And a perfect example I always give people is with Kevin Levy. We signed on as part of our Cities of Venus universe, the third installment, which will be called Civil War. That game, when he first pitched to me, I couldn't visualize it, and even at that point, his was still pretty visual compared to some of the stuff I see. But it wasn't until I saw his most recent iteration at Origins, 2 years ago, where he had kind of really kind of freshened it up and really tried to make it look slick. Where I'm like, whoa, like it had that kind of table presence. I'm like, well, what's this? Now let me get into it deep, and I could really see. Okay, now I can connect the dots on how this could be reskinned to fit our universe. And I mean, we changed all the artwork and everything, but as that initial concept allowed to pull me in. So that'd be the advice to give to anybody that's pitching: is the more visual you can make it, the better. And also, if you can kind of describe the concept in a couple sentences, this is what this game is about, before you even show the game, right? That helps a lot too, versus just saying here's the name of the game and then I'm reading the rules, I'm trying to figure out what this is all about. So it is a grind, and I think there should be more kind of like sample kind of pitch competitions just to give people the experience to do that. Even maybe pitch workshops or workshops around building those initial pitch sell sheets. I think would be good. There should be more of those at some of these cons than there is even today. Um, as
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Because and also every game is almost different, so you have to pitch a little bit differently for every
yeah,
game. So it's just that hard. Yeah.
and know your audience too. Like I've had people pitch stuff to me, and they're like, I'm like, clearly they've never looked up what Tin Robot Games is, because this is so far off the kind of games that we do, that they're just like blindly just sending it out everywhere. So the more you can kind of personalize it to that company, the better, I think, too, because then it lets the company know, okay, this person actually is trying
Hmm.
to get me to see how this fits within our portfolio, right?
Yeah.
I digress. Regardless, but I want to get back to
It's good.
to your journey, which is again incredible. So, how many games now have you either self-published or had published? Like, how many games have been kind of put out there that you've created now?
I I I think it's like more than 20.
That's a
Yeah.
lot.
So, yeah. They're mostly like little games. So Yeah,
But that's
it's
okay.
easier.
It's those fun little games that I absolutely love. Most recent one I started playing was Pixies. I don't know if you've seen this one, and it's based on a grid of 9 cards, and a game you can crank through in 10, 12 minutes flat. But it's so much fun, and it's got enough strategic depth to it that people that are gamers enjoy it. But also it's simple enough that you can
Nice.
explain to new people in terms of kind of these kind of gateway games. So anytime I can find games like that, I absolutely love to have a handful of them in my game bag for game night. With your game coming up, this Cat Sudoku. Now you're saying just before we go on air, this is like a sequel to, I guess, a version you had before, like a spring festival. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So the first edition is a roll and write.
Ah, I gotcha.
So yeah, so that is it's called Roll for Kyoto. So you have the spring vibe of the theme, and so this one is summer,
Mm,
and it's two different games, but just under that Castogu, like universe kind of.
yeah.
Yeah.
And where did you come up with the idea? Was the theme or the mechanics come first? So did you kind of figure out the
So
game, and then you skinned it with the cats, or did you say, "Oh, I gotta have a cat game that combines with Sudoku"?
So for a long, long time, like more than 10 years probably,
Yeah.
I really want to make a Sudoku card game, but it just never I can never figure out how. It
Hmm.
has to be more than just numbers, but it has to be interesting, and it's has to be a little bit more dynamic,
Mm.
um, and not just for one person, and be able to actually play, not like multiple solo, multiple player playing by themselves, but they actually play it together.
Yeah.
So it's something I want to do for a long time, and then just maybe last year, or I don't remember, but I just somehow it was just I start going back again, and then I kind of figured out how to get it started. So I thought I can add color and then put in in a confined space, and then just go from there. But then I was thinking like, how do I make it and add another level or another tier, but not too intense, would just make it too hobby, too difficult to play, but it adds agency to the game.
Hmm.
So it just like uh, kind of compiled little things, and then so yeah, that's how I made this game, and also it's I already have cast the the roll and write already,
Mm.
so I just add into this cast the universe or series. Yeah.
And then your who's the artist in this? Because I love it's like a kawaii style artwork you have on this, which looks just awesome and cute.
Yeah.
Who is your artist?
So her name is Kiami, and we did several games together. This is Cat Rescue, Cleocatra, and Cat Sudoku. Yeah, yeah, and she has a lot of cats. I think others that actually have cats, they can do better art with cats too. And then she's amazing, and her, she did so many cats for me, and they're all adorable and like super cute. Yeah,
Yeah, it is. It is. It is a very cute looking game, and congratulations on funding already. So let me just
oh,
say that out of the gate that yeah,
thank
you're
you.
already funded, smashed your goal, 555 backers. You also have the price point on this is quite low, shockingly low. So it's basically priced to be a gateway game to have somebody throw in their game bag. And I can see you've got many of your other titles as part of your campaign page that people can add as add-ons if they miss those campaigns as well. For those who are trying to understand like how you play Sudoku with cards and cats, can you walk us through kind of the basics or the gist of how to play this game?
Okay. So uh, players basically the goal is to play cards into this 3 by 3 grid,
Mm-hmm.
and when you play, um, you have to make sure the numbers and colors they do not repeat in the same row and column of the cards that you play, and also there's a meeple on the card. So you cannot play a card that has a amiibo on it. So after you place the card, then you can move the amiibo to the card you play. So that's the basic. Now, everyone has a score zone. So end of the game, for the basic scoring, you will be getting 1 point for every card in your score zone. So you're trying to place it legally and also into the right place.
Mm.
And in addition, that's the additional tier to the game is there is a reserve card that you saw with some reserve cards. There are additional cats you want to play into the grid, and it requires reserve tokens to play them. In order to play to get reserve tokens, every card has a little wish. So you have to, if you follow the instruction on the card, when you play, when you place the card, you get that reserve token. So when you
Mm.
have two, you can play the reserve card. Now, end of the game, if you don't complete your reserve card, you get -3 points. So
Eesh.
you have to get them out. And also another point that you will be getting is whoever has the most reserve token end of the game, you get 2 additional points. So that's pretty much the gist of the game. There are a lot of things that you can do. You have to think about placing cards in your score zone to get points, and then in the right place to get the reserve token. So you can use the reserve token to play your reserve card, so you won't get negative points end of the game.
Yeah, and there's when I was looking at kind of the rules. First of all, it's very simple to teach, which I think is really cool. Um, is this kind of like risk that you're taking of, okay, if I can't play a card, then I put it into my kind of reserve area, but I can optionally just, if I see a card I want to put in my reserve area and save for later, I can put it there, but I run the risk that if I don't play it by the end of the game, I'm losing points, right? So
Yeah, usually, yeah, you try to not to do that. Either you can play or you just don't want to give points to other people.
yeah,
So you just put in a reserve, but
yeah, it's called hate
it is a
drafting.
risk. Yeah, yeah,
Hate drafters, I love them. Yeah, it's very, and
yeah,
then the scoring zones is pretty cool where you say, okay, if it's a two-player game, then your scoring area is the far left column, the other guy is going to be the far right column. 3 players, each person takes a column. 4 players, it's the outer rows. And then you have some overlapping scoring as well, which I think is kind of an interesting mechanism as well. The concept behind this of kind of like Sudoku, when you're creating a game like this, is it literally you starting with like a deck of cards? Is that how you do your game design and you just start figuring it out on a table? Or is this more of like a pen and paper working out the math of how this works first? Or how do you go about in terms of your design process for like a game in this case?
Okay, so in this game and also more recent games, I usually do more run through in my head
Mm,
before I get into like card distributions, and even before I made a copy.
yeah.
So you just like have to just visualize what what's the goal. I'm keeping the Stugu concept. It has to be there,
Yeah.
right? And it has to be a little bit more, but that little more is the color I found. But it has to be, yeah, it's just not too much. It's not like a set of is more number or anything like that. And so with that, after that's being set up, but how do I get a point system, a fair point system,
Mm-hmm.
and also how to create that agency? So in the beginning, it doesn't. There's no reserve cards, but then people just play and then get points, but it doesn't have that agency. It's just a little push
Yeah.
to give the players. So that push is the reserve cards, and on top of that, to getting that push is to get that reserve tokens. So that chaining of getting this and that, and then accomplish the final act of bringing the cats into the festival.
Yeah, because I would have thought originally when I was looking at the game that your scoring would be the actual point value on the cards, but it's not. It's the card count, right? That's your points when you're adding up at the end, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's that cut down. It's easier to play because I want people to enjoy or focus on the play than remember the numbers on
Yeah.
the cards, the points. It just yeah, it just it's 1 point per card. There's nothing to think about, right?
Yeah.
But just focus on play, enjoy the play.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And then your decision to self-publish versus taking this to a publisher. What was that decision for you? Is it like
Uh,
a case where you don't have takers, so it's like, okay, no one's taking this, I'm going to publish it myself, or how do you work the balance between those two sides?
but because for this game, I already have a previous Cat Sudoku
Hmm.
game, so I just might as well just do it myself.
Yeah.
But for other games, yeah, I do pitch, and it just depends on like just happen to know who needs what games, or there's a possibility to meet, then I will make new games and then pitch. But otherwise, I have my games that are kind of scheduled to publish in the next few years,
Mm.
and I do have that. So a lot of games already have art. They're in the pipeline, just like get ready to be promoted and then get review copies and publish. So that's and also usually the easy games I save it for myself. The easy small that I can it's easy to publish.
Yeah.
I'll save it for myself. Something is more difficult. I find a publisher.
I guess
Yeah,
someone that's got an entire team that can work on it instead of having to do it all
yeah,
yourself, right? That's smart.
yeah, and they can for sure they can do a so much better job than I myself can do
Yeah.
because they have a team, right? Yeah,
But I
for
mean,
sure.
you've done well on this page. This page looks amazing. I mean, you did a great job on
Uh,
that. So bravo on that, and
Thank
congrats on
you,
the
thank
funding.
you.
So what's next? Can you tell us what the next game is you're working on, or what's coming after this one, or is that like super secret, or what?
Yeah. No, 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 this is no secret. So the next game coming up, it's called Cat's Gambit. It's a chess card game, the solo chess card game. So I made 100 copy last year just to see if anybody would be interested.
Yeah.
So I sold out 100 copy at Essen Spiel.
Oh
So
wow.
I thought, wow, okay, I guess people are interested in this solo kind of a chess puzzle. So yeah, so you basically you have chess pieces to there's a queen, uh, to knight to rook to bishop, and there are seven pawns, but you only play five
Mm.
in every game, and they have a special power on the pawn, and there are four krakens, like a krakens. So your goal is to play cards to the grid and make sure that the kraken, when you play it, it will not checkmate your queen.
Mm.
And if checkmate one time, you lose some points, but if you check it mate the second time, you lose the whole game. So there are four krakens in the game, and then your goal is just to play all the cards and make sure that when the game ends, the queen stays in the inner of the 4x4, which is 2x2, and so the highest points you can get is 20 points. So you're trying to score as high as possible, and then this newer version has a little bit change in the rules that is and made it easier for people to finish the game. So in the first edition, the one I published a year ago, I can finish the game like maybe 10% of the time,
Oh wow.
and it's just hard. It's very hard. So right now it's a little bit easier. It's just a little bit easier. Yeah.
When you take 100 copies to Essen, is that just pretty much a break even endeavor? Like I can't imagine you're making much money.
Oh, I have other games. I
Oh,
just
so you
for
brought a
that
bunch of
game.
games to Essen, but you also had your 100 copies of this one as well. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah. It's a small print run, so the cost is very high,
Yeah,
and then I just want to test the market and just to see if it works. So
yeah,
I guess this is something I can another series I can try to develop into.
yeah. Smart.
Yeah.
Well, for those who want to check out Cat Sudoku Summer Festival, I encourage them to check out the show notes. I'll put a link in there. You can also just type in cat on Kickstarter, and it'll bring up all the cat games, and you'll see it as one of the campaigns that's live right now. I think you still have, how many days left do you have here? You've got 16 days to go. So you've already funded, you've already smashed your goals. So it'll be interesting to see where you land. I can't wait to see how this thing finishes off. Definitely these kind of games I love. So I'm going to be watching you going forward. I'll make sure I follow you on Kickstarter and see what else you have coming down the pipe. And I want to wish you all the best in this coming year, my friend.
All right. Thank you so much, James. Thank you so much for the invite. It's a great honor to be here.
No worries, my friend. You take care. Cheers.
Thank you.
This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply subscribe to our YouTube channel, Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.